President Obama will address the nation this evening to talk about the fight against ISIS and the ongoing investigation into the San Bernardino, California terrorist attacks. When it comes to protecting the homeland, what steps should the government be taking that we are not taking right now, that the government is not taking right now?
Well, there's a number of things I hope the president will outline tonight, and I think they'll all be part of a strategy towards defeating ISIS and all the broader risks we face to our national security, so not just ISIS. But for example, our our intelligence gathering capabilities have been significantly diminished just in the last 4 or 5 days. For example, yesterday we learned through the Associated Press that the phone records of these 2 individuals that carried out this attack in California, we only have access to the last 2 years. So it doesn't give us a complete picture of, for example, the U.S. citizens' involvement for the last 5 years. So I hope the president will work with us to reverse that so that the intelligence agencies have access to a full picture. He's also issued a series of presidential directives that have weakened our ability to gather intelligence against potential adversaries, and so I hope that will be changed as well. And then when it comes to ISIS and around the world, they're a growing threat in multiple countries. They're now beginning to pop up in Yemen. They're growing their influence in Afghanistan. They now have a very significant influence in Libya, as I pointed out for months, and of course Iraq and Syria. And so, by the way, I think Jordan is very concerned about attacks within Jordan that could potentially be imminent at any moment. We've got a growing crisis here on our hands in the Middle East with ISIS. So I think it's important that the president begin to outline how they're going to be defeated. And airstrikes alone aren't going to do it. Certainly not the limited airstrikes that are happening now. But apart from airstrikes, there must be a ground force put together to confront them. And it must be a ground force made up primarily of Sunni Arabs from the region, including Iraqis and Syrians, but also a contribution of troops from Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt. The UAE has already expressed some willingness to provide ground troops to such an effort. This is a radical Sunni group. They need to be defeated by Sunnis themselves on the ground.
Well, let me ask you about the surveillance aspect of what you're just talking about, because I asked the White House specifically about this Associated Press story, and they say that, first of all, they have access now under this new policy, this new program. They have access to more metadata than they had before in terms of the overall volume. And they say that this is a criminal investigation now because of the attack as in the past. And the Department of Justice has access to many, many years of calls. Are you saying that there's anything that changed in the recent days that if it had not changed, that these individuals could have been detected?
I'm not saying that alone. The Associated Press is saying that, as they reported yesterday. And again, this talk about this being a criminal investigation goes back to exactly what my problems are with this administration. This is a terrorist operation within the United States. The fact that they were not told by ISIS, go into this specific center on a specific date and conduct an attack, fundamentally misunderstands the nature of this growing threat. The homegrown violent extremist does not take specific direction from ISIS. They are inspired to take action. And for example, how did these people come up with the money to buy these weapons and the ammunition and build the pipe bombs? This was potentially thousands of dollars of expenditures. Are we going to be able to track down where that money came from? Again, they have lost an intelligence tool that was very valuable, because they're trying to go back to phone companies. Many of these phone companies are saying, we're not even going to retain records. Others are only retaining them for 18 months. So even if they had access to it, if the documents do not exist, they can't put together the broader picture of who these people are, who they've been dealing with, particularly the man who's been in this country his whole life. Wouldn't we want to know as much about him as possible in an effort to perhaps identify others that were of assistance in this attack? According to the Associated Press, that information is no longer available.
But he wasn't on anybody's radar. I guess that's the question, is how would he have been detected if he wasn't on anybody's radar? And in terms of the woman, she's only been in this country for 2 years.
But that's exactly why the metadata program is so critical. People wind up on your radar that perhaps wouldn't have been on your radar. So, for example, for them to conduct this attack, I believe that it is highly likely that they dealt with somebody at some stage in this process, whether it was a person who helped them finance this effort or individuals that provided weapons. And that's why you want access to the metadata.
Right, but the metadata program,
learn about those individuals.
It was the old program during all those years. That's what I'm saying. If it changed recently, I understand what you're saying going forward, but in terms of finding Syed Farook, that was under the old metadata program.
No, yeah, right, but that's what I'm talking about. Moving forward, this is not going to be the last attempt to attack the homeland. And so there are other individuals that were of assistance to them. Do we not want to know who those individuals were, even if the contact happened 2.5 years ago? or 2.25 years ago. And the reality is, under these changes in the law, that information will not be there for us to look at. And then those individuals could lead you to additional individuals. Metadata alone is not going to solve all the problems, but it is an important piece of a bigger puzzle that allows you to disrupt potential terrorist plots. And these are not plots like the 9/11 plot, where you had over a dozen individuals working together on a very specific plan over an extended period of time. Homegrown violent extremists are going to be even harder to identify. And the one area you might be able to identify them before they take action is if they come into contact with someone that we know is clearly involved in terrorism, we suspect is involved in terrorism. Again, there are individuals they talked to over the last couple years that do belong on our radar now, who may not be on our radar because we can only see the records for the last 2 years or whatever the phone companies are holding. The law allows up to 2 years, but many of these phone companies have already said, we're not holding on to records at all. By the way, I think those are the phone companies that are going to get a lot of business from people who intend to do this sort of thing.